Welcome very much to MNN. It was really good talking to you on the telephone, and I look forward to being in touch with you. And I'm really looking forward to this program. And in the audience, welcome very much to Conversations. Our guest for this segment is Sue Healy, and she's the Vice President for Products and Content of a very interesting organization, and that's called the Leadership Directories Incorporated. And Sue, welcome so much to Conversations. It's a great pleasure welcoming you to Conversations and Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's my great good pleasure. We had, I had met a person that you were, I guess he was like a mentor to you, David Hurwitz. I would say at the outset, he was my person that I knew from some time, about 1995.
Okay.
He was involved as president then,
right,
and so forth. And I'm looking forward to having a telephone conversation with him. But I wonder if you could share just a little bit of your own background, born and raised, to wade in about you, and then we'll get to the leadership directories and we'll explain it. But could you share your own personal background, born and raised, educated, a little bit, please?
Sure. I was born in Boston and raised in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And then I went to college at a little liberal arts school that had about 450 students. It was called Bradford College in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and it has since closed down, which is a sad story.
Antioch closed, I think, too. You
it's a sad story about these small private schools.
Yeah, right. But it was a good school, I take it.
I really enjoyed it there. Yeah.
And you studied creative writing, among other things,
yeah,
right?
Literature and creative writing were my focus. And one of my fiction writing teacher encouraged me to go into the world of publishing. And my good friend and roommate, Jennifer, she was studying the same thing, and she lived in New York. She also wanted to go into publishing, so she invited me to come live with her and her family in New York after we graduated, and that's what I did. And we both looked for publishing jobs, and she's in trade publishing, and I went into information publishing.
Okay, that's very good.
Where I am.
So you've been in New York for quite a while. How do you like New York compared to Massachusetts?
Oh, I love New York.
You do, I do too.
Absolutely.
I love New York. It's the best town in the world, I think, and
Yeah.
it's really good, and that's very good. So and that was your first, as it were, a point or a job was at Leadership Director?
Yeah.
Well, you came to a real good place, didn't you?
Yeah, I definitely did. I got very lucky.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Massachusetts' loss is New York's gain. Welcome to the hubbub of New York City.
Thank you.
And everything. And let's talk a little bit about this. That I was associated with David Hurwitz, as you said. He was president of this unique entity, and it's called the Leadership Directories.
That's right.
Why don't you share a little bit with me, you're the content producer, why don't you share with me some of the history of that institution?
Okay.
And we'll get into it. We have a couple of little clips that we're going to be showing to show how it works, but could you share the historical development of the Leadership Directories and so forth?
The company actually began as a newsletter publisher based in D.C., and they were publishing daily and weekly roundups of what was happening in Congress and the news about what the committees were going to be meeting on and talking about as a reference for people who were working with Congress.
When would that have been? When did
that
it start
was,
around?
1970.
1970, okay.
Yeah.
That's
And the people who were running the organization at the time started meeting with lobbyists and other people who were working with members of Congress on the Hill and started doing training sessions of how to work with Congress.
Yeah,
and it was
huge subject.
Yeah, and it was a customer at one of these training sessions who said to them, you know what you need to be doing? You actually need to be giving us a directory of the United States Congress. That would be a great thing. And so from that, they decided to create a directory.
Had there been anything along that line? We have, they have publication, congressional directories and things, sort of, don't they? They must have had that.
Apparently at the time there was no directory of Congress.
Okay. And when we're talking about Congress, you're not only talking about the congressperson from a particular district, the staff and the members who are really part of
the key thing.
They're sometimes as important as the person themselves.
As far as we're concerned, they're more important.
Really?
Because
okay,
the
that's
way
very interesting.
The way you're going to get in to talk to a member of Congress is through his legislative staff. So you need to know who the legislative staffers are and what issues they cover for that member of Congress. So that's the big thing about our directories that make it so useful and helpful to lobbyists. And so our first directory was what is now the Congressional Yellow Book. At the time, had a very long name that I can't recall.
Maybe we could. We're going to show you some of the database and everything like that. This is one of them. They look like this. I have the whole set. David got to me in 1995, but it's sort of out of date now.
It's a little out of date.
Yeah, but this is like a thing you can see. It's very wide, you know. And there's how many of them are there now?
There are 14 printed editions. 14
editions. This one, Congressional. And what it has, as you can see, it has, I'm going to just show it real quickly and so forth, but here, we happen to open it to our representative, Carolyn Maloney. And if you could come in tight focus on this, it would have the detail here in printed form for Carolyn and her staff, and who is who is her chief of staff, and who is the people who serve with her, and information on the people within the Congress of the United States of America, and is brought up to date on a regular basis because those names change and so forth.
Oh, absolutely. The print edition is updated quarterly, so you'll get 4 editions per year, but the online edition, every morning, there's new information. And that's really what people need nowadays.
Okay, thank you very much. And did you do any no, let's just go more about the outline of the whole organization. Because from the congressional one that you did first, it ended up to where you had 14. And I think it might be worthwhile. You and I, before we started the camera rolling, you counted them off. And so what you do is you have a look at, this is the Congress of the United States, very easy to understand, but then you've got 14 other divisions of the power and influential leadership relationships of the Americans, I guess in some degree world, society, a kind of who's who, but in a very practical way, of the leadership of the Western civilization in a very real sense. But could you tick off what are the titles of the 14 volumes, and then we want to get into the database and how it's all working.
The Congressional is the first and still the most important one that we have.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Important? How do you determine what?
It's the one we're best known for, and it's the one that we have the most customers for, and it's near and dear to all of our hearts.
They have the congressional record. They have other things. Are there competitors to what you're trying to do? I've seen things with summaries of the people there. There must be a lot concentrating on the Congress, right?
Yeah.
But this was the first, and it goes back to 70. Was there a lot of, you're too young to remember then, but were there competitors or standard setters that had been doing this kind of thing that the people who set it up were able to repair to? And do we know who set it up in the original, whose idea it was for the...
for this directory?
No, for the Leadership Directory itself as an institution.
That was definitely Donald Petrie. We know that. He's the founder of our organization and definitely the leader of everything that we did, all of the decisions, especially product decisions that we made, the new directories that we would put on the market were always Donald Petrie's decision.
Is he still with us or
He's not. He passed last year, unfortunately.
And somebody's taken up that role then, right?
Well, he had retired from the CEO position a few years back, and David was the CEO.
David Hurwitz?
Yeah.
Yes, that's who I knew, David,
Right, and David retired last year, and now we have a new CEO, Gretchen Teitgraber. But the family members of the founders of the organization, including Donald Petrie's son, Jim, are on the board of directors.
I see.
So it's still a family-owned and family-involved organization.
Okay, we were listing. This is the one that's the most significant. I got all. That's the trouble, because there's all these things you can do. We could talk for 17 hours, but okay. And what are the other subject areas that you cover, or areas of society?
The federal government in D.C.
Apart from Congress?
Yes, the executive branch of the federal government.
Okay, right. That's huge.
The executive branch of the federal government outside of D.C.
Outside of D.C.
Right, so there's one printed edition for within D.C. and one for without D.C.
Does that include embassies abroad and so forth, or not?
Yes, it
does. So you've got the federal government pretty well covered.
Pretty well covered. Oh yeah, 100,000 employees of the executive branch of the federal government.
Right. Yeah, it's a behemoth. Yeah.
It is.
Okay. Yes, and others?
The state government, both.
State government for each of the states. You
Absolutely,
have
executive branch and legislative branch.
Okay.
Municipal governments, we have cities and counties.
Okay.
The judiciary, we list federal and state courts.
Okay. Very interesting.
Corporations.
Corporations. Okay. Very good.
Financial institutions.
Apart from corporations.
Yeah, we separated them into 2 directories. Online, they're as one.
Yeah, we're going to get to a little clip to show the online version, but go ahead, yeah.
The news media?
News media, that would be ABC, NBC, CNN, and everything. And so you'd be listing in there the chairman, and then the director of programming, and the senior vice president, and all the people that make up that entity.
Major focus on the journalists and the editors and the writers, because it's a tool for
within
PR
the media.
People.
Within the media one.
Exactly.
Would it differ what you highlight or emphasize in terms of what area of society you're covering?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Each one is sort of tailor-made to the way they relate to the broader society, I presume.
Right. And for what the customer is trying to do through contacting that individual. In the media, it's very specific that they want to know who the writers and the editors are and what their beat is, because a PR person who's pitching a story, that's their entree. And we even list about the editors and the writers pet peeves. I don't
really? You get
I don't
down
like to receive email.
Absolutely. Really? Okay, no, that's very interesting.
Nothing's too idiosyncratic.
Right. And you get down to that. Okay, let's tick off the rest. And media, we happen to hit on because we're in the media.
Associations. Those are trade associations.
Right. There used to be a thing of a major thing you saw in the library of associations.
Was it the association's yellow book?
I think it might. I'm not sure if it was what it was called. No. No, you're talking about your own.
Yeah.
Well, when you say yellow book, that's what you're doing. You're getting a pitch in for the home team,
Of course I am.
Okay, good for you. And may the Yankees win the pennant, huh?
The Mets.
The Mets. Okay, you're a Mets fan. Okay. But no, there was a thing, the association something, and it had all the associations. It's going back 20, 25 years. There was a. I just remember there was a thing. There was also a thing about foundations, a foundation directory or something for foundation. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off track.
That's quite all right.
Share with me again. What are the others? What maybe you've lost track now.
No. I hope after all these years I should have it down, right?
Yeah, you've been there about 17 years?
Yeah, just about.
Okay, good. Congratulations on that tenure.
Law firms.
Law firm, legal, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Apart from the judiciary.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
Halves.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
Government affairs operations. So those are really lobbyists and the lobbying wings of major organizations located in D.C.
That must be getting to be a thick book. Another big fat tome, huh, Mr. Gibbon? You know, because there's a lot of lobbying there now. It's growing.
Yeah.
And you keep your pulse on Washington, yeah.
Yeah, and foreign representatives, which is
Embassy?
the U.S.-based, U.S.-based operations of foreign governments and foreign corporations, foreign media, foreign law firms.
Foreign law, those people that are operating in the United States?
Right.
Is that
they have major offices in the U.S. We're going to cover their major U.S. operations.
Toyota, or like that. Okay. Yes. Or also into governmental institutions, or the
intergovernmental
Congress of Japan, or what do you call them?
To a certain extent, not so much, but we have a lot on the UN.
Okay, UN. Is that
the delegates to the UN?
Is that contained in that volume, or is there a separate one for the UN?
No, it's contained in there. It's a significant portion of it.
Yeah,
but it's
I should
within
think.
there.
Yeah, but then that's where you could go to, and it's all. The way you lay that all out would be have a heuristic thing. I mean, you'd have a pattern to it all that would be interesting.
The way that we list everything is hierarchical.
Okay.
And we use different font sizes to indicate which organization reports to which organization.
I see.
So in the federal government, we go down to 11 levels of
11
hierarchy.
levels down the chain of command, like as it were, in a sense?
Yeah.
11 layers.
11.
Is that like the G grade or the grades they have or something?
We don't record that, so I'm not really sure.
Well, how do they determine 11? Do you have the same number in corporate? Or
no.
does it vary?
It varies.
Yeah.
Federal, we go the lowest because I just think there's that much bureaucracy in the federal government.
Yeah, it is a huge bureaucracy, and it's very important about who reports to who and everything. And that's a lot of what that is about, because you're not dealing just with the people you see on television, you know, the CEOs and the heads. The people that make up the real institutional structure of the institutions of the country is what you're dealing with.
Right.
And you keep it up to date. What others are there?
Nonprofit. Nonprofit sector. And that's a collection of different kinds of nonprofits, colleges and universities, foundations, charitable service organizations, prep schools.
So you got universities and Salvation Army in the same book?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be private and public, I mean, and
yeah, there are public foundations and private foundations.
And universities. So you have
Yep,
Harvard,
yep.
Yale, Salvation Army in one category.
And the Joffrey Ballet.
And the
all in
Joffrey
one book.
Ballet, and that's under the term, that's a catch-all, or that's going to catch a lot of wide-ranging thing as compared to, say, the judiciary.
Thematically,
Yeah.
what you're really talking about in that book are those boards of directors. Those are incredibly powerful, incredibly affluent, incredibly well-connected people.
Yeah.
And having them as part of our database draws connections to public sector, to corporations and other organizations.
And the interlinkings thereof?
It's so, the nonprofit boards are really the tie that bind it all together.
Really?
Very interesting.
That is interesting in a sense. A real good sociological study of the way the society operates, right?
And if you're doing fundraising, it's definitely where you want to be.
That's where you want that thing to be there.
Sure.
Okay, a couple more, or have we got them all?
I think I got them all.
You got them all?
I hope I did.
Okay, now,
I'll hear about it later.
Yeah, no, that's good. You got that, and it concentrates on the leadership. It's called the leadership, and it's leadership in, like you say, in the federal government, 11 echelons down into the bureaucracy.
Right.
And then what you'll have information on them, their phone number, their fax number,
direct
their
phone
email,
number, fax, where they went to school, the degree that they got, their career information, memberships that they might have in clubs, sometimes their religion, and then depending on the job that they hold, vital information that pertains to that job. We talked about beat for journalists, for congressional staffers, it's absolutely the legislative issue that they work on. For a program manager, it might be the specifics to the types of programs that they work on. So depending on the role, there's some information that's interesting to have. If you have a lobbyist, you want to know which issue he's working on, whether it's a state issue, he's a state-level lobbyist or federal-level lobbyist.
You want to have that, and then and you go far down 11 layers in the. Do you have any idea or any way of knowing just out? I mean, maybe it sounds silly in some, but you've got, obviously you're going to, and that database is being upgraded all the time.
Yes.
So because there's a new vice president of programming or something at institution A or something, and you keep that up to date on a regular basis, but then you also have some breaking, it seems to me, like you have a database. It's all being managed by a database and so forth. And then you have a way of keeping track of a lot of other information that's available, like you have a look at websites and sources, and then you have to set up standards by which you source the validity of that triple, or we used to do in journalism, triple source or something, to make sure that what you're printing is accurate. Those are some things maybe you could talk to briefly. And one question in a pattern kind of way, do you have any idea of how many people in terms of all the volumes there are in your database?
There are about 602,000 live people, and by live I mean we're showing them to the customers. We don't have them suppressed for some reason because we're working on them. So about 602,000 last time I checked.
602,000
in our online collection.
And in a very real sense, that would represent in depth, if I may, at a certain level, particularly it sounds to me like when you do politics and economic considerations and so forth, the leadership of the country.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now you don't have artists, you don't have ballet dancers, you don't have painters, and the arts, or philosophers, those kind of things. It's just strictly it's oriented toward the movers and shakers, maybe you could say, or those in the loci of power and influence within the system.
Right, because I think because it began with the congressional and then went to the federal.
Right.
Our customer base was in D.C., our corporate base was in D.C. It became about who's looking at D.C., who wants to work in D.C., with D.C., needs to communicate with these people. And the other directories were born out of...
From that nexus, okay, I can see that. And then it would have been also, there's I don't know, you had IBM, Big Blue and whatnot and everything, but there were databases, and a lot of things have been done by databases at the corporate level. but the computer revolutions that are characteristic of the time you and I sit and talk now have impacted all this. And you used to have it printed, and you probably have print runs you'd have to schedule and all that, and that's all changing because you also have these other sources you get that are updated not only on a quarterly basis or something, the biographies and so forth, but also breaking stuff.
Right. Right. So we have, for every organization that we list in our database, we have a contact person at that institution who has agreed to update their information for us.
Is that a contractual relationship?
No, it's
voluntary?
It is. It is.
Okay.
And
fully upset. Because you could get a lot of backroom talk going on, and you know how you get gossipy things, and that person looked at me bad, and that kind of thing. So you want to make sure you could set the pattern.
Most of the gossip comes from the news, not from the contacts.
Not from the contacts. No, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Because that's a lot of what goes on in large organizations is backbiting and talking, and this person looked at me strange and all that.
But it's typically the corporate communications department or the PR department or some sort of external-facing department who is comfortable and used to doing this kind of thing.
And they probably do it routinely, and everybody does it, so everybody understands it.
Right.
Well, that's a very important source of information on our leadership, isn't it? At a level that we're not aware of when we look at our television sets. Or probably read our newspapers much. But that's really an important source. And
we get a lot of what we consider to be the value-added information from these internal contacts.
Sure,
a lot of that information you simply can't get from the internet or the news.
And you say you do go idiosyncratic, right? They don't like email and things like that. It's a heck of a job keeping up with all. You must have a huge server. I mean, it must be the size of the Empire State Building or something.
We have a few huge servers,
I should think.
Actually.
Yeah, right. I would think so, And are you managing that content or something, or are there others, or what is your particular role?
My role is to manage the people who manage the content.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there are about 40 individuals in D.C. and New York who are constantly updating this database.
Right.
So they're sending this information out to these contacts anywhere from 2 to 8 times per year, depending on the organization. They're monitoring secondary sources, news, anything that comes to us as a secondary source, not directly from the organization, has to be verified with the primary source before it can go into the database.
You're not going to take just off some blog or something.
It's a steadfast rule of everything that we publish.
Well, that would be important. It's more important maybe even in journalism to try and source. But for you, because you've got a directory and your reputation is on the line, that you're not having it all done by page 6 rumors or something, you know?
Your reputation is on the line when you're using that information. And we want to be sure that you get the deal.
Or it's useful.
Get your bill passed, or don't embarrass yourself at the least. That's very important to us. And we have a reputation for having very high quality data that's very up to date.
Who's your competition in terms of this trying to do what you're doing? I mentioned to you Bloomberg Wire, everybody's got that in the finance world. And who's your competition in terms of something close to what you're doing? And then we've got some clips that you've put together, and we want to get to that. That shows the database where a lot of the work is going on the computer. But who is your competition?
For corporate information, the biggest competitor is Hoover's, which is a division of Dun & Bradstreet. For congressional information, Knowledge S has a database. CQ is a competitor. On the federal side, it's Carroll's Publishing, Input, Onvia.
But like Cook's Review or something, or Cook, you know, the guy Cook or people who do that, there's nothing on their own to do. Don't the agencies have a person who does that? Like, you know, you have, I don't know for sure, but you have a Congressional Quarterly, or you have you have different things that are just part of the institutional structure itself. Maybe I'm asking a naive question, but
I think that's generally more analytical news, more newsy news. We're straight information publishers, and it's all about facts and information. And for us, the focus is on people, the people that run these institutions.
Are you in the footsteps of, or how do you relate to things like Who's Who, or you know, what is it? What's the real one? Marquee.
Right. Who's Who is similar in the sense that its focus is on people.
Yeah.
It's less similar in the sense that it doesn't focus on any organizational structure.
Right. No.
We offer the organizational structure and the organizational hierarchy
Yeah.
of the people within it.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest difference is really the business model. Their thing is, look, Harold, you're one of the who's who of America. We'll put you in this book. Do you want to buy a copy?
Yeah.
That's not our style.
No.
You don't pay to be listed in our directories, and we're generally selling them to the people who want to reach you. We're not going to sell it back to you.
So you want to have good information because that's going to be a product that's going to be good shelf life.
Right.
In a certain marketing sense. So it's a marketing of that. Okay, it's so damned interesting. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. We don't have. But one of the things we do have, I got a little confused on it and everything, but we have a couple of clips that you people put together.
Yes.
And maybe you could talk, we've been talking about the directories. We're going to talk about the database
online,
and
yeah.
that, and the online,
Right.
because that's where a lot of the action is, I think.
Yes.
And you put together a couple of clips. Maybe you could, in a certain sense, try to set it up
Sure.
for us, because we're going to try and run it on the screen
Sure.
and let people see. And is this something people subscribe to, the online?
Right.
You get the directory,
Right.
but you can have the online
Right.
also. So
Right.
could you talk about that?
Definitely. To set up the first clip, we're going to show you a little tour of what we call Leadership Networks, which is one of our newer products, and it's a full database product, so all the people that are in our database are in it. And what it is, and what was so exciting about it when it launched, was it was the first time that we used visualization with our data. And
Okay.
you held up the book before, and traditionally,
it's standard.
very much
looks like entries, except it's
Yeah.
got telephone numbers
Yeah,
and stuff
it's,
for other people. But yeah.
it's very flat. You know,
Yeah.
you do your best to communicate through
it's
the
very
design.
useful. It's very, very useful.
It
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah.
the requirements of the world of online are so different from
Yeah.
what was acceptable in a printed directory.
Yeah.
So we use visualization and color and movement to show you a lot of information. What this product does is it connects the people in the database to each other based on their current job affiliations, their previous job affiliations, their current board memberships, their club memberships, whether or not they went to school together.
You have a way of cross-referencing those
Yes,
things?
we've cross-referenced
That's
it all, and
amazing.
we've connected people, and then we've used an algorithm
to
tell you who they are most likely to really know.
Sort of like Facebook or something.
Yes, a Facebook that is of
or
the leadership.
LinkedIn.
Yep, but only of the leadership of the United States, and fully verified and updated.
The leadership in one context of what we mean by leadership.
Right.
Because you seem to be falling short on the artists and things.
I know.
You know, it's the business, it's the hardcore political and economic leadership, which is usually, and that fills up most of our news screens.
Right.
But the people like Einstein and the people who are in the arts, or no, in the sciences and so forth, is another thing.
True.
I don't know who's covering all that. You know, who are the leading edge people, or do we have a definition of human purpose? You know, who are the people that are leadership according to what criteria? If it's money and power, that's one, and that's very al current now. You know, the political thing, it seems the news is all political. There's practically nothing on science and the things that are going on at another level, but that's another issue.
But even science is political now.
It does become, and Lynn Margulis is making a real really questioning, particularly just in the realm of evolution, the peer review process is so politicized. You know, and that's not good for science. That's another issue, though.
That's another show.
Yeah, that's another show, another city. I was born in a trunk in Pocatello, Idaho, Judy Garland told us, right? But anyway, tell us about this. And so we got this. So
you have all these people.
And we're going to try and bring that up now, and you'll be able to see it on the screen.
They're connected to each other, and what's exciting about it is you can see who they know and use that as a tool for reaching out to the people that you need to get to know.
Leadership Networks is a highly interactive visualization tool.
Okay, run it.
Explore a person's network by navigating
and we can talk
through a colorful
over it, but
display
there is
that reflects each relationship's strength and type. You can mouse over any of the colored nodes to see information about the relationship between the individuals. You can also mouse over the individuals to see additional information about them, specifically their contact and career information. Another key feature in leadership networks is the ability to find paths between individuals. So let's see how Edward Whittaker is connected to Barack Obama. You'll start by seeing their strongest connections. You could mouse over any individual person icon to see information about that individual. You could also mouse over the colored nodes to see the types of connections that exist between the individuals, whether they are career, board, education, or family. If you want to explore the connections further, you can click to see the second tier. This is how Barack Obama is connected to Edward Whittaker through other individuals. Once again, mouse over the nodes themselves to see what the connection is. And you can keep scrolling through the various tiers. You can also click on the person icon for any individual and see their network. So here are the connections for Mr. Smith. You can expand connections to see detailed information about the individuals. You can also mouse over the nodes to see what the connection is.
So he's just taking you on a little tour here, showing you the movements. And the Flash interface is just so engaging. And you just click away and bounce from person to person. And for us, it was just a hugely innovative way to display data and to present it in a way that immediately gave meaning to the information that's not always discernible from a flat presentation of content.
Absolutely fits right into pattern recognition. A very unique capability of human consciousness is pattern recognition. And it's not just linear.
Now let's try mapping a path from Mr. Kent to Edward Whittaker from General Motors. So once again, you'll see their strongest connections first. You can jump tiers to see additional connections. At any point, you have the ability to print the path of these connections, and you'll see them sorted by the strength of the connection. You can also choose to export the connection into an Excel document. Another powerful tool in leadership networks is the ability to see paths between individuals and organizations. So let's try to find a path between Warren Buffett and General Motors. Your list of results is going to be sorted by the strength of the connections. So you'll see the strongest path at the very top, and just click to see the connection. And you'll see the node connecting the two individuals will indicate that they've held previous positions at the Coca-Cola Foundation. It is these features, along with many others, that make leadership networks an exciting interactive networking database of who's who in the leadership of the United States.
That's really interesting. Again, the thing that would be, that's really interesting, it's really interesting, and the term leadership is something that's really of interesting to me.
Right.
And I'm wondering, how do we determine who the leadership is? I mean, we have the political pattern, we have the corporate, we have the money, we have the standard way in which that's seen, but it doesn't get down. You did creative writing, and I suppose you read some of the works of people that weren't political, or weren't thinking of that. In fact, the ones, I was just thinking Rome, we have a few emperors and stuff, but the ones we remember, Ovid and the great writers and the painters, and we remember Leonardo da Vinci more than the Medicis. And this is, as most all of our, what is the leadership? And that would get back to a thing, maybe it's not even worth going into. We have another clip we want to get to in a minute. But how do we get at a determination of what is the purpose of human existence in the universe? And how do we determine how is there a purpose to it? And who's fulfilling that purpose? And it seems to be like the rest of the week's programming for Conversations, we're going to deal with a fellow who thinks he discovered the beginning of the movement from inorganic to organic processes for evolution. It wouldn't be in the book. It's not there. Another one who's done other great things, inventions and things like that. You're not covering. You're just covering the straightforward political, economic notion of leadership.
Right.
I just want to put a point, and that's not necessarily our leadership.
True.
Those are people that need to have. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And
that's all.
Donald
I'm saying
Petrie,
somebody else could be doing that, dealing with who the real. You have to have a definition of what human purpose is.
Yeah.
It's not just to make money.
No.
Okay, but understand. That's all the point I wanted to make.
The founder, Donald Petrie, always qualified it by calling it the institutional leadership of the United States.
Okay, yeah.
So these are the organizations.
Yeah, and it's a commonly accepted idea of leadership. Okay, I'm sorry, I just make that point because I'm very partial to some of the people who are not in my
in
fact, they don't even want to be in. Like, you know. Anyway, so that's another issue.
It would be gauche.
Poets and things, you see.
Sure.
But anyway. But we have another clip, Donna, while we're at it. And you have a second clip.
Yeah, the second
maybe
clip, on the theme of visualization of the information and the fact that you can only communicate so much through the flat presentation that you see in the directories.
Right. Well, you can see from there what you can do and make those connections.
The 11 hierarchies that we talked about earlier in the federal government, we display those online in interactive org charts.
And organizational
charts.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Okay.
So what was formerly a lot of print on paper is now a colorful org chart, and it allows you to see who reports to whom and really navigate all that bureaucracy very easily on your screen.
So who's relating to? And again, it's pattern recognition between you had Mr. Buffett relating to him or somebody Obama relating to this fellow, and that's something that we can do with the algorithms now that is possible. You ever see what they can do with just YouTube? YouTube, they put it up, they can tell you how many people in any country looked at it, what the sex was of the people who watched, what the age groups, all of this stuff. It's amazing what can be done with the databases, the way they're coming. And it's coming exponentially now, more and more, as you and I sit and talk in the year 2010.
And it's because of these advances that have been made through technology that our customers, their expectations for the information that they receive from us are so increased. They want so much more information, they want it so much sooner than they ever received.
What about the people who just want
past.
information that doesn't have any economic component or political power component, just knowledge? We used to have Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm going off on a track.
You have to go to the library.
Yeah, but I mean, couldn't this be done? I saw a thing. I saw a thing. They had a database coming up. The evolution of life. There was a thing where they were connecting Darwin, all these kind of things.
Right.
Aren't there beginning to be things like that that have educational capability other than just the political and economic, intellectual leadership?
Yeah, certainly.
Do they have some? Do we have anything comparable to this that deals with the intellectuals? Because politicians aren't intellectuals.
No, they are not.
Or the businessmen are not intellectuals.
Not usually.
And the intellectuals do have some say, I would think. They may be falling down on the job, but they present the real patterns, of leadership and fulfilling human purpose. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely
We put too much attention on the money and the power.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
But anyway, go to the second clip that you have.
The second clip is the org charts of the federal government.
Okay, let's see if we can't set that up and run that. It's just on. It should be on the computer. And they might have a little difficulty. We had a little difficulty here. We can just chat until they get it going up. We had a little difficulty linking between a database on a computer and our television. There was a little bit of a problem. So if you can try and get that going up, so maybe we could just go ahead and start there. Is that it now? Maybe that's coming up. This is a second. If you have to be able to.
The Leadership Library includes interactive org charts. These federal org charts show you the complex structure of the federal departments and agencies. Included are both DC area offices and regional offices. You're able to drill down through up to 9 levels of government and print the charts for reference and presentation. In this case, we'll be drilling down the U.S. Department of Defense. The relationships between various entities are clearly outlined using connecting paths. Leadership Library is updated daily, so you can be sure that the information you're viewing is up to date. Now let's use the interactive org charts to drill further down the United States Department of Defense. You'll now see the next level within the Department of Defense. Drill further down to see the next tier. At any point, you can click on a person's name to see their contact information. If you need to get back to the first tier within the federal org charts, click on this arrow at the top left. Now let's explore the independent agencies.
Now they're just exploring in greater depth there, right?
Right, yep.
And they're just letting you see it.
Yeah. The way it works is when you click on it, all the employees display on the right-hand side, which you can't see in this close-up. And when there's an arrow on the lower right of the box, and you click that, you move down to the next level.
Isn't that
Using the federal org charts, we're quickly able to drill down and find the Dallas field office for the Farm Credit Administration. You're also able to find relevant contact information and communicate with the local field officer.
staggering?
Now let's explore the structure of the EOP.
Office of Economic.
Let's see the White
Executive
House
Office of the
office
President.
to see its hierarchy.
What?
The Executive Office of the President.
Oh, thank you.
The interactive federal org charts make it easy to find the individuals you want to explore and contact. These hierarchical charts can also be printed for reference or presentation purposes.
That's amazing. You found the field office in Dallas for the thing. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's as amazing as the computer itself. Yeah.
It's
And you're
very
working
exciting.
in this.
Yeah.
It must be exciting.
It's
right?
interesting. It's interesting to watch the evolution of what we can do with the content, moving it online. The Dallas field office was always there.
Yeah,
But being able to find it in a way that's fun and simple online.
Right. And user-friendly?
Absolutely.
You want
I
it
think
to
so.
be user. Yeah, it seems user-friendly. That is important.
It's one of the new requirements of online. It's
online new products that are going to help us relate to the data that's available.
Right.
You want it so that people can use it. It used to be so complicated. You didn't study computers or
I did
anything.
not.
You didn't have to. You were studying this, but you picked up
I was studying Charles Dickens.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Little Tim. Yes, and get that big goose at the end of the hall. Yes, hustle off, Marley. Okay, good. But I understand what you're saying. But this is very important thing, and that it's coming, and it's all based on algorithms and things, and that they link them together.
Yep.
So there are people who know how to do that.
Sure.
I mean, just look at Google, for crying out loud. That must be just huge and so forth, but it's a huge development that's coming in. So but
here.
A lot of people are afraid of it because they think it's too complicated. It's getting more user friendly, the computer, all the time, I think.
Definitely.
From the beginning.
In the last few years, I think from my perspective, what we've been doing when we first started putting the products online to where we are now, we are all pioneers in our own way. There was no model that we had to follow. This is how you create an online product and make it interesting and useful for your users. So we look back on what we did a few years ago and we think, oh, well, we can do this so much better now. But at the time, it was cutting edge. But customer expectations have changed, technology has changed, and as technology has improved and the customers have demanded more and more, the focus is really on giving us more as soon as you can, but make it really, really easy to use.
Easy to use and very authentic, the information.
Absolutely.
That's a very important thing,
key.
isn't it?
That's
that
key.
used to be run by editorial boards and things like that in institutions and that. Yours is a very responsible position. I mean, the company's is very responsible for keeping track of one of the major sources. I should think people in the news and or marketing or anything would find it absolutely invaluable.
They do. They do. A lot of major news organizations subscribe. The entire U.S. Senate subscribes to our online products.
They do? The Senate and the House, too? Would it get there?
We have a Senate-wide subscription that gives every member of the Senate and their staffers access. There are pockets in the House that we
Do you do that? Is there a contractual arrangement with the Senate?
There is.
Because there is a business model here you have to deal with,
Yes,
right?
we are a subscription-based organization. Everything is sold on an annual subscription. No advertising, no influence of any kind. You pay for this information. You pay for it, and you don't give it away to anybody? No, we do not. No, you cannot do that because it would violate the integrity, maybe, right? Also, you have to have a business model you have to live up to. I think it goes back to the business model. Okay, Okay, it's interesting. That's very interesting. And then there's all these other databases that are coming along as well, keeping track of people like that. It's going faster and faster all the time. Do you have to be aware of what's going on in the cyber world yourself, in your position? Yes. Or you do? Yes. And how does it affect your dealing with the sources of information and the personalities and people involved in that? So you interface between that and the technology, know where it's going to be in 5 months, where it's going to be in 5 years, that kind of thing, in order to be able to effectively do what you're doing. And this would be a model for a lot of other organizations that are probably going through a similar process vis-a-vis the emerging technological capability the computers offer. It's a tough balance that you need to strike because for as many of your customers are early adopters of new technologies and want the information available to them on their wireless device or in an iPhone app or whatever. There's also a vast number of customers who still want the print. And then up from there, you're more late adopters to the online products who are still using Internet Explorer 6.
But there would be people who might be more comfortable with
there's definitely.
It's like the old Encyclopedia Britannica, by God.
And we love them. We love our books. We love selling print books. And we also love doing the online products and catering to that new kind of customer. But you have to be careful that you're striking a balance with adopting the newer technologies like we have to make the product interesting and useful and user-friendly, and not going too far so that people have to install things on their computer that they're not comfortable installing, or that their older computers and their older browsers will work with these newer products. Absolutely. So you have to keep all of that. Remember in the old days, when you write for Mr. X and Mr. Y. Mr. Y knows everything, Mr. X knows nothing. When you're planning your online products, you have to think about a super technically savvy individual and someone who doesn't even know where the mouse is. Right. I see. That's really more the challenge than being on the absolute cuttingest edge of the cutting edge, as far as I'm concerned. Well, you're in a position to know, and it's a challenge. It's not only at Leadership Directories; it's a challenge in the society at large. Because that's a society we're being inundated with things, and it's also going. I saw. I don't know. Where it's just around the corner. They're going to have carbon 60. It's just around the corner. It's going to take the place of the silicon chip. Its capacities for moving information electronically are much enhanced, and the line is going exponential. Wow.
It's not just hyperbolic, it's going exponential. We'll be swimming in bandwidth. And there's going to be applications for that. One of them I saw that we just had an economic meltdown after September 20th of 2008. We had a big thing. Everybody got surprised. We were very surprised. It has to do with intelligence and thinking ahead and leadership in a political sense. Mm-hmm. I remember when they did in 1989, the Soviet Union imploded, and intelligence agencies missed that. They did not know that was coming. They were tunnel visioned into specializations, right. And there was very little cross-talk or cross-communication, and then there's very little pattern recognizing because our institutions are encouraging so much specialization as a way of organizing our society. Right. So it's a hard time for people to see things from a pattern where they connect a lot. That's one of the things you just demonstrated. You see patterns that you can see, and right. People are very good at that. But we missed that, and then we also missed the inappropriate way in which we're organizing our world economy, coming up to when Mr. Paulson came in with the 3-page thing that everybody had to say was going to be the end of the world. Do you understand?
Yep.
So they were caught unawares. Sure. And they're caught unawares. They're Katrina. Right. Mr. Brown didn't do such a good job as Mr. Bush was saying. All that. So the externalities is the thing, and then all the environmental things that aren't taken into account in the decision-making process or the learning. One of the things I saw is that they think these algorithms, like finance is a huge thing, and you're going to have people who have a Bloomberg wire on their desk and everything. They're making decisions to try to get a advantage of a quarter point over prime or something like that kind of thing. But the finance decisions and the finance, I don't know how they relate to politics. You're talking politics and economics, but the finance is that the financial decision making is going to be increasingly a matter of algorithms. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be patterns that with triple redundancy that the people, the human input to the process, let's say a financial decision making, item A, B, is going to be within cyber, within algorithms, and the people who are trying to get an edge by being in one part of that thing as a human being making decisions is going to be superseded by very large technologically oriented systems that are done by algorithms that are just patterns of software programming, and the people are not going to be so important as they have. Here you're talking a lot where people have the chemistry between them. If you say she doesn't like email or she doesn't like nylon stockings, or you get into all these human things, but the thing, do you understand what I'm saying? And do you see that coming, or that Lord Kane said they're going to be able to, we're going to be confronted with massive, in the letter to his grandchildren. That's another thinker. He wouldn't be in here, I guess. But he said,
maybe
we're not going...
Maybe he'd be on the board at Harvard, though.
Very likely.
Okay.
Yeah, it would, because they can co-opt the intellectuals, right? Yeah. The people. Okay, but he said in a letter to his grandchildren, like, we're just coming off this thing that Mr. Obama and the president and Mr. Bush and Mr. Paulson and Geithner and all these people came up with and said, you got to get a 3-page thing that's got to get through the Congress by Friday and signed by the president, or we're going to fall off the end of the world. The whole thing's going to fall apart. So they got that kind of a thing, but it's just that it's going to be done by these algorithms and the decision making. Mr. Keynes, he said in a letter to grandchildren written in 1930, he was very brilliant. He's going to be, you don't know, he said, it's going to be, you're going to be confronted with something that grandchildren from 1930 in their maturity, which is about now for you, and that it's going to be massive technologically induced unemployment is going to be characteristic of the human condition. And all they talk about in the leadership positions is how to get jobs for people. Right. And the algorithms and the things are going to be able to be massively productive, but you got a decision to make about how you're going to distribute income to them at an economic theoretical level. And so, what do you, I guess the question is, do you think we're into a thing? What's this future, if we project ahead, of the implications of all this technologically developing system that's coming exponentially?
Right. I have to respectfully disagree with Mr. Keynes about Keynes, excuse me, on the mass unemployment due to technology.
Okay.
I don't think
good.
that's happening. I don't foresee that happening.
Okay.
I think it's just a shift in the way people are employed and the jobs that they are employed doing.
Okay.
You talk about your algorithms and the system that's
Right.
going to make all the financial decisions. That is going to require thousands of programmers to create.
Well, programs can create themselves. Expert systems, programs can create themselves. That's what they do. You could never do what those algorithms do. A human being couldn't sit there doing that.
You still need someone to create that technology.
Okay, yeah,
and
but
to maintain that technology,
the technology can
upgrade that technology.
Okay, okay.
Plug it in.
Right.
I just
well,
think
yours
the way
is much more the accepted view of what it is, because that's the way everything's going and everything's measured that way. But I'm saying that's from outside, you know, the thing. But I just want to tell you, I think that the thing you're doing and you're putting it together is incredibly important work. Must be fun, huh?
It's fun. It's product development is very creative, and following all the news and following what's going on with all these people and the changes is exciting. And some of the members of the team who are following the information are also blogging about the changes that are happening. So what you see as just a simple change in the directory online has a very interesting story behind it, and it has larger implications for our society, for our economy, for the world of business, for the world of politics. And they have a chance to discuss that and ruminate
these are some
a
of the
little
people
bit,
you're in
speculate.
association with out in the world.
These are my employees.
Or your employees
that are,
in the company,
that are blogging and they're talking about.
Right.
So someone's blogging about what's going on in Congress, and someone's blogging about what's going on in the executive branch of the federal government.
Right.
Two other people are talking about what's going on, changes in corporations.
Right.
And it's sort of color commentary, and it brings in the relevance and sometimes a little bit of the gossip, which makes it kind of fun.
Well, that's what takes the place of the news in people's mind. A lot of gossip. You notice how things go about somebody had sex with somebody or something. It has nothing to do with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot
but
of
that's
that.
that's what it is. A lot of that.
Right.
But that's a part of the you know, the context of it. Are you optimistic for the human prospect?
Right now?
Yourself personally, let me ask you personally, are you optimistic for the human prospect? And if you are, how optimistic, and how large a changes that we confront, that we look out with the exponential change coming into the months, weeks, and days, and years ahead? I
am generally optimistic about human beings and their overall capacity and their resiliency. I would have to say that I'm currently a little frustrated with some of the political and social issues and environmental issues that we're confronted with as a people that we seem to not be able to make a lot of progress with.
Your directory might help people be able to make those changes, okay? I thank you very much.
Thank
it's
you.
so good talking to you. Your pleasure to have the perception. Sue Healy. And